Shabadoo, shabadoo. Bum bum, ba-da-ba-dee-ba-dee-ba-dum, bum, bing, bing, ba-doo-ba-doo, boop, boop. Shabba-dabba-doo, dee-ba-dee-ba-doo, ba-da-ba-doo, boop, boop. There's very gutturally. How do I sing to your very scary Oh.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nobody Asked with Maria. Hello, and also me. My name's Colin. Today, we've got a litany of interesting subjects to talk about, but the main one, and also the only one, is the FBI raid on Trump's Mar-a-lago residence. What did they find? Why did they find it? Was it a cabal of pedophilic lizards that convinced the FBI to do this? No. And that is what the show is about. Woo!
Yay!
Our president was raided by the FBI, and the word I've heard the most ever in my life forever is unprecedented. This is an unprecedented. Shut up! Everything's unprecedented. Dork.
Until it's precedented.
Everything is unprecedented until it's precedented. Put it on my tombstone. All right. Mom, do you want to read the first or to introduce the first category?
Sure. So on August 8th.
I'm only joking because there is an ad read. Yep. It's the first time that we've done this, and so we forgot, and that is why I had to interrupt my mother for it. Today's episode is sponsored by Nobody Asked. Nobody Asked is looking for more sponsors because sometimes Colin does his research for the podcast, but he doesn't come up with a good ad read. And so if you wanted to pay us and also write the ad, that would be a win-win for Colin. So today's episode is sponsored by Nobody Asked Ad Reads. Additional sponsor, my girlfriend jiggling some pans around in the background and smiling because I'm giving her shit and giving me a thumbs up. And then she's going to pick up some mail. And then she's going to throw a New Yorker at me. Okay.
Is she like legitimately? Is she just holding the pans in the air and just jiggling them around?
Yeah. What were you doing? No, she's not even going to respond to the question. She just did literally exactly this. She's holding two pieces of mail, and she went.
She gave him a jiggle.
Gave him a jiggle.
I like it. So should we jump into this, of the moment topic? Should we talk about
of the moment topic? Yeah, and I mean we can tie in some other topics, but does it feel like a shoe dropping for Trump, or does it feel like just another little hubbub, just another little thing that will yield nothing?
Oh, yeah, that's a fair question. And man's all about spin doctoring, right? Propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
How do you spin it?
Here's what was hilarious about it when I first read it is that I went, oh, this raid was for which crime of Trump's, right? And there's a list, and the answer was none of them, right? Was it for the election fraud, or for the dealings with Ukraine, or for any number of fucking things he did? No. Just taking documents from the White House, something I hadn't even thought about him doing, but of course he did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's pretty fucking hilarious that it's nothing, and that in the wake of this happening, he has to go, and he's been subpoenaed for a deposition in a completely different trial in New York, where I think he just left that deposition, and he came out and he said that he pled the fifth for almost everything, and then he did the like Olympics Black Power fist, which I
Oh
find
no,
out
that's not what that fist means. Is that the QAnon fist?
QAnon fist. Look,
I think
man,
they have. I
the
think they
fist
have one
looks a
too.
lot very similar to the Black Power fist. So,
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does, but I don't think that it means black power. The
dude,
written
I saw
notes
an
in the
actual
toilet.
Nazi today.
Wait, what?
I
You
saw an
saw a
actual.
Nazi?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it wasn't clear visually. He was probably just crazy. But I had just gone on a run and I was walking back, and this crazy guy comes up to me and he goes, "Buy me a sandwich." And so I laughed in his face because that's a funny thing to say, you know. And then he spat at me, not on me, otherwise there would have been a problem. And then said "Heil Hitler" to me, and I didn't know how to deal with that situation at all. I was like, "Whoa, okay, I'm gonna go, I guess." And then I thought, as I was walking away, I was like, man, this would have been so good for my political career if I got arrested for punching a Nazi in the face. Like, imagine me running for mayor, and it's like, Colin Wasserline was arrested for punching a Nazi after he said Heil Hitler. Eric Adams was a fucking cop. Who are you voting for?
That would be an interesting. Look, Patricia said, I had an uncle-in-law that died in a Texas jail for stealing from the Washington archives. He died well, there he's in Texas. That's
Well, that's a
interesting.
story and a half.
That is a story and a half, but it feels topical because we are kind of going to be talking about the archive, right? The National Archive, and also the Justice Department. So the Justice Department does have two active investigations right now against Trump, right? His involvement in overturning the 2020 election / the January 6th insurrection stuff. Like that's just one. That's one overarching investigation. And then the second one, which is what we're actually going to talk about, is how he has handled classified documents, which doesn't feel like, end of the world stuff really. But I think a lot of us remember when he exited the White House, because there was definitely concern that he was not going to leave, right? That
Yep.
he exited in a hurry. And, what was he doing on the way out? Was he, as Barbie brings up, ripping notes in the toilet and just flushing documents?
Yep.
Was he jamming them into his maw and chewing them up? Who
Yummy.
There was definitely something's not right here. And so when a president leaves, he is required by law to leave so much of his stuff, right? Your phone records, they're not his. They don't belong to him. They are not his private documents. These are the documents of the presidency, and they are to be archived by the National Archive. We're talking phone logs, security briefings, emails, handwritten notes, maps, all manner of thing. They do not belong to the president, and he's required to turn them over to the National Archive. Well, when the archivist got what was the remnants of Trump's presidency, they said, this doesn't feel like everything. This doesn't look right to me.
This is a little light for how fucking controversial this presidency was.
This just doesn't seem like what I was expecting. And so, I think that they make a little phone call and they're like, maybe we can ask them, the Trump, did he give us everything? Like, where is all of this stuff? And so, Trump says, oh, oopsie, the transition, when I moved out in 6 hours, oopsie, some of the stuff ended up coming to Florida and going into storage. My bad. So he acknowledges it. He acknowledges that he whoopsied the situation. Oh my gosh. And so at some point, he returns like 15 boxes full of stuff. I will say it gets a little confusing because it's like he gives some stuff back, right? But after that, as the archivist is going through all of that stuff, it's like, this still doesn't feel like everything I'm expecting. Because, they kind of know what happened during his presidency. I imagine there's certain things they would expect to find. and they aren't finding it, and they are going through it with a fine-tooth comb. And so they call the Justice Department and or the FBI, whoever it is they're supposed to call, and they're like, see if he's got some more stuff, because this doesn't feel right. So what happens is, initially, somebody goes down there. Oh, I think a Justice Department investigator goes down, like a group of them. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them. They go down, and they go and they talk in Mar-a-lago. They talk to Trump's lawyers. They're just kind of saying, "Hey, we just want to know if what there is. Is
Yep.
there more stuff? Whatever." This might have been the original 15 boxes. I'm not sure. But at some point, they're like, hey, man, this doesn't, can we see what you got? And so Trump pops in. He's like, oh, hey, what's up? He doesn't answer any questions. He doesn't do anything. He just pops in. You just know he's there. And he leaves. And then they take the investigators down to a storage room in the basement. And they're like, look, here's where we've kept it. See, here it is. And then I guess they don't feel like they can just snatch it up right then, right? So then they just go ahead and they send a letter to the lawyers that says, hey man, you guys need to secure that stuff better. So one of Trump's aides puts a padlock on it. Okay, problem solved.
Yep, fixed.
Fixed, problem solved. But
The famously impenetrable padlock.
exactly. Okay. I don't know exactly where we're going. Okay, so at some point, so that feels, I get a little confused in the timeline because they never put years on the timeline. Am I talking about 2021? Am I talking about 2 months ago? I have
Yep.
no idea the timeline on this because um, somebody did some talking to the Justice Department about this because I think they still felt like they don't have everything. So there is somebody close to the whole situation that started talking. I know there were some aides involved. Some aides were talking to the Justice Department and to the FBI, and they gave pretty explicit information about what is at Mar-a-lago, specifically what's there and where exactly it is. And I think this is important to note because when it comes to getting a warrant of this scale, this isn't just we think you have drugs and we can just make up, because drugs as an excuse. This is, you have to have very explicit, very specific information to get this type of a warrant.
What type of
And
warrant is it?
I don't, a federal one.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, but I'm just going to say, because we're talking about the Justice Department on the federal level, it's just a different level. I will say, it's a magistrate judge in Florida is the one that granted it. So definitely the warrant was issued through Florida, but it was the
He's
FBI
also
that went in.
that judge was appointed by Trump, right?
So that is what they're saying. I'm going to say no, because
Nice.
it's a magistrate judge, right? So he did become a magistrate judge during Trump's presidency, but Trump he doesn't have any say in the matter. So what happens is with a magistrate judge is that the district judges, like a panel of them, there's like 40 of them or something, they vote on who's going to be the next magistrate judge. So he was voted on by district judges and said, you get the job. And like a magistrate judge, they'll preside over civil cases. They'll do some smaller criminal cases, but they're also the ones that are handling a lot of procedural stuff in a criminal case, before trial, and a lot of warrants. So they handle that kind of stuff. So no,
Okay.
that's inaccurate. But the FBI director, who was who was coordinating all of this, was appointed by Trump. That person has not changed.
Nice.
So we can say that. But again, Merrick Garland, he is the attorney general, and so the head of the Justice Department. That is definitely somebody that Biden put into office. Many would say he should already be a Supreme Court justice, but shenanigans and whatnot. Yep. Let's see. Okay, so the warrant is basically to seize, let's see, presidential records or any possible classified materials. That's all they're for. That's all they're looking for. They aren't looking for evidence of any sort of crime. Just, do you have presidential stuff you're not supposed to have? Do you have classified stuff that you're not supposed to have? And so initially, Trump was saying, "Hey, this is all good. This is just to preserve my presidency." He was giving it a nice spin. You know, there's no shenanigans, nothing bad going on. We're all doing the right thing here. I will say, in that initial box that the archivist, got in, there was correspondence between Trump and Kim Jong-un. There was a letter from Obama to Trump, when they were doing that transition of power. There was definitely some classified information in there. So the idea that there wasn't classified information, they knew that there already was. He had already had some stuff during that initial scooping up of boxes that should not have been there. So that is how they got their warrant, because they have already proved that he did the thing. He did the thing. And what's the thing? It's a federal crime to remove classified documents wrongly. Period. On top of which, I know I'm doing a lot of talking here, but
No. I'm happy with it.
okay. So on top of which, after the Watergate scandal with Nixon, there was a thing called the Presidential Records Act of 1978. And it requires presidents specifically to preserve all historically significant material. So we talked about that earlier. They are required to do it. It is an act. It is law. And it becomes part of the National Archive. And the penalty for not doing so, it's not the hugest penalty in the world. It's like $2,000 and up to 3 years in prison. But it does disqualify you from holding office in the future.
Yep.
Feels pretty important.
So wait. So that's obviously an important note. What is it? Does it just disqualify you because it's a felony, or is it specific to that crime that it disqualifies you?
So we're actually dealing with there's two different sets of rules here. The Presidential Record Act specifically. So this is for presidents specifically. Yep. So it's not necessarily that it's a felony in this particular case. It is the rules for, you're a president, you need to turn over this stuff. That disqualifies you from holding office. So
okay.
But sorry. I will also say that in 2018, so Trump was losing his mind during the campaign about Hillary and her emails. And so in 2018, when he became president, he kind of bolstered another law that we already have on the books. It was part of the National Security Bill, and it made changes to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And that's when they made it a felony, before it was a misdemeanor, to remove or retain classified documents. It doesn't, okay. Period, exclamation point. Wrongly moving classified materials is a no-no. And the maximum penalty went from 1 year to 5 years. So it is a different statute, because we're talking about anybody. We're not talking about specifically presidents. It's anybody, because Hillary was never president. The email situation happened while she was Secretary of State. She had a private email server because they're just easier to use than the one that is provided by the State Department. And she had many, many emails on there. There was 100 of them that contained classified information at the time that was already deemed classified. But there was like 2,000 others that were retroactively declared classified. Yep. So, she said, I never sent. So that was her shtick was, I didn't send any classified information. People may have sent her things that were classified, but she wasn't sending it. But it was kind of too little too late. You weren't doing things the right way. James Comey, who was the FBI director at the time, he said that she was extremely careless, but because she had no criminal intent, we're not gonna prosecute her for that. Yep. And it's difficult because, I know her emails leaked, but they didn't leak because she was specifically hacked, which is an interesting point. What was his name? Blumenthal? Blumenthal was the one who was hacked. The correspondence between Blumenthal and Hillary were the ones that got out. There was thousands of them. And he was hacked in 2013 by a Romanian hacker. But I will also say the security measures that she had on her personal server were garbage. There definitely were some light level attempts at hacking that just by virtue of luck, didn't get through or weren't released. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that there is reason to question whether she should have had something thrown at her. But again, it would have been a misdemeanor at that point. She wasn't president. She was a previous secretary of state. So she could have gotten, 1 year in jail at the time
Yep.
on a misdemeanor. So,
and would not have gotten 1 year in jail. I mean,
exactly. Exactly. But, I think we have to try to be even handed. Was she sloppy? Yes. Was she wrongfully transmitting classified documents? Maybe.
did she
Yes.
know what she was doing was wrong? Probably.
Probably. I think that there was a sort of a lackadaisicalness about it where everybody was doing it, right? And so if everybody's doing it, what's the big whoop-de-doo? And we saw that again when Trump became president, right? Even after all of this, everybody knows, don't use private servers. Use the government provided, email servers to communicate stuff that is related to the government. But a lot of the people in his cabinet and his little sphere of influence were using private servers. They were, even after the fact. I said a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay. So what James Comey said was that he was declining to prosecute because of the lack of criminal intent. And so I guess, I mean, the question here is the fact that Trump was given so many chances to turn over documents. If this raid turned over more and especially classified documents, then it seems pretty hard to argue that there was no criminal intent because
exactly.
I mean, it was made incredibly clear to him and he continued to take this course of action. And it feels very, if you watch Succession, there's a character in that show who essentially claws his way to power by holding on to one specific document for a very long time. And it feels a little bit like that. It feels like Trump is like, let me just get as much like collateral and blackmail as I can. So on one hand, it feels like that. On another hand, it feels like Trump is playing chicken with the Justice Department in order to aid his narrative that there is this like deep state effort to prevent him from reclaiming the presidency that he's rightly earned. And so is he orchestrating that? But yeah, the question of what his intentions are here is certainly more complex than what I'm led to believe about the Hillary Clinton intent.
Oh, I agree. It is definitely more complex and it's more interesting. And he is so good at spinning a narrative that we saw the narrative spun before our eyes. So here's another interesting point. So when James Comey started investigating Hillary, it was very, very close to election day, and he got a lot of flack for that because that is not the way they normally do it. The general rule of thumb is you want to be 90 days outside of an election cycle, outside of the voting cycle, and so there is a reason that the FBI raided right now. It's because we're about 92, 93 days outside of the cycle.
Yep.
So they're trying to do it on the up and up. They were trying to do it quietly. They went in, they didn't have their big FBI jackets on. They tried to do it when Trump wasn't there so that he couldn't make a spectacle out of it. They went in like a Ryder truck. I mean, yes, they had some black SUVs, but I don't think seeing black SUVs at Mar-a-Lago would have been weird. So, and then they just kind of went in around the back and they went to where they needed to go. They didn't just start, throwing bodies outside of the, outside of the clubhouse or anything. They went right where they needed to go. Apparently they went into Trump's safe. No, they went into his bedroom, they went into his office, and they went into the storage room. They knew where they were going because they had specific intel on where they would find things.
They also opened Melania's safe, right? Because they had been tipped off that was where some especially sensitive documents were held.
Oh, she had her own safe? Maybe. I mean, I know they went in the bedroom, so I imagine they would have opened everything up in the bedroom. Yep. Shoe boxes, whatever.
Yep. It's interesting. One element of search that is controversial, but I do wonder about in this case is that when a police officer has probable cause to search your vehicle, for example, he doesn't necessarily need to be looking specifically for whatever he finds for it to be admissible to evidence. And so there is the additional question of if the FBI finds additional crimes, are they just going to, because it's a very different organization, are they going to attempt to deflect the political motivation thing so much that if they find evidence of other crimes, they're just going to say, we're just looking for these fucking documents. So,
It's
I'm
a
going to
that's a
at
that's a
like,
fair it's a fair question, especially because the Justice Department is also investigating him, about what happened on January 6th.
yep,
So it's a great question. I don't know that they're not going to be transparent about that. I
nope,
don't think. I would be surprised. And we're already seeing how certain Republicans and Donald Trump are saying that basically this is all politically motivated, that the Justice Department is being weaponized for political purposes, just like the Supreme Court, right?
yep,
I mean, what's good for the goose good for the gander? I think we're doing a decent job of trying to make it not appear that way, right? We have Biden saying, "I didn't know anything about this." They're
yep.
running their own investigation. I found out on the news, just like everybody else did, which may or may not be true. It's very possible he might have been told and doesn't remember.
What I think is more likely is these investigations begin and Biden is like, for the safety of my fucking campaign, stop telling me this. I do not want this information. That seems like
Yeah.
very likely to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think he knew there was an investigation going on. He didn't know the timeline and all of that. And, you had to coordinate with a lot of people to make this happen. You have to coordinate with the Secret Service. You have to coordinate with local law enforcement. Local law enforcement did know what was going on,
Yep.
and they kept their mouths shut. When asked, hey, do you know anything about the warrants? They said, we don't know anything about any warrants.
Good for
you
them.
know, it is good for
I
them.
bet they were told there were some serious consequences because Florida cops not historically with the best credibility. Yeah, no, I mean it's all interesting that this was able to happen, and I'm also interested in talking about what some of the reactions are from both sides here. Um, I'll talk just briefly about there's one talking point that I saw on the Republican side that I found very funny, which was an attempt to dispel the allegations against Trump that he had removed these documents or whatever. And and I thought it was pretty funny. It
Did.
was it was that same like Second Amendment argument that basically if the president does it, it's not a crime. But they were saying, do you know who has the greatest authority on what is classified? The president. So if the president says that something isn't classified, then it's not classified. And I mean, I found that all very funny.
Well, so there's a grain of salt to that. There's a little bit of truth to that. So Donald Trump did go through and try to declassify a bunch of stuff on his way out the door, but it doesn't matter, right? He needs to turn in the things that do not belong to him. They belong to the people and they belong to the National Archives. And National Archives, I'm sure, had phone logs, or they had, his itinerary. They know what he did. They're like, on this day, you had phone calls with, Iran. Okay, so you didn't generate any paperwork from this discussion? You didn't
with
generate
Iran,
anything? With Iran. You didn't generate anything from this? Come on. Okay. And then you had another phone call with, Kim Jong-un. You didn't generate any paperwork. What's going on? You didn't. Where's all of this information?
yep.
I know you did. You guys worked out a deal. Nobody wrote the deal down. Come on, you know what I mean? So I think to a certain degree, they know what they're going to be handed, at least generally, and they weren't. So, and he admits that, whoopsie, I made a mistake. And whoopsie, I made a mistake doesn't matter in terms of the presidential, what was I call it? The Presidential Records Act. Whoopsie doesn't matter. And in the updated 2018 of the whatever I called that one, FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, I don't know that whoopsie mattered there either. I think whoopsie sort of protected Hillary Clinton because that rule wasn't exactly there, or maybe not worded the exact same way. But I don't think whoopsie is good enough anymore. Just wrongly doing it. Is there a right way to accidentally take documents? No, you're not supposed to take them. And there's no way that he didn't get a briefing on the fact that he needed to leave all of this stuff, that it didn't belong to him.
Obviously, but I mean, I also don't know how prosecutorial discretion works at this level, right? Because when oopsie does matter is in small courts. If the prosecutor likes you and has a ton of shit on his plate, you can whoopsie your way into a plea deal or into charges being dropped, right? There can be a handshake deal with the prosecutor, which is, look, if you, I mean, in the case of vandalism, like if you paint over this vandalism and, and we don't catch you again, we won't charge, right? Even though you
Sure.
did commit a crime. So what is the prosecutorial discretion going to look like in this case? Because as soon as there's an individual with a decision to make, then it seems like it's all about their incentives again, which some people have been flagging as a problem with the justice system for a while now. But now it's Trump, and so any decision that gets made is inherently political,
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think for me, listen, I don't think that this investigation was politically motivated strictly because it was brought on by the National Archivist. The archivist was doing their job.
How could it be
But
political? The librarian did it.
it was the librarian. But at the very same time, it's hard not to look at it and think, interesting, because dis- the result is being disqualified from public office. How do you not look at that and say, oh, this is a brilliant workaround? He's not going to be able to run in 2024. How do you not look at it that way? So I can understand them saying, this is unprecedented. I can understand that. There's a reason it's unprecedented, is because everybody's done it correctly up until now. Before that, this law didn't exist, right? So we can look back to Richard Nixon and we could say he was very full of shenanigans. So would he have turned everything over? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the old adage. It's like drastic times call for drastic solutions. Unprecedented presidencies call for unprecedented reactions to that presidency. If you don't dedicate to a peaceful transfer of power, if you make sure to inhibit your successor every step of the way, if you perpetrate lies about the election, and if you attack the very fabric of our democracy, and then open yourself up to attack in something as simple as leaving behind the the documentation of your presidency, possibly because there's evidence in there of other crimes that you committed, guess what? That's not good. Uh, it's
It's
not
not
good.
good. It's
And
not good.
inevitably, some of these documents, some of the most important documents have been destroyed. I'm certain of it. Especially
Undoubtedly.
that possibly show his connection to January 6th in this case. But everyone fucking crying about it being unprecedented is like, how do precedents get started, brother?
Exactly.
When shit that hasn't happened before happens.
Which
And
is why
happens.
which is why this law exists to begin with, because shit
Yeah.
happened before and they're like, we don't want that shit to happen again. So let's get ready for it. I will also say, when Nixon resigned, and Ford, took office, Ford said, I am going to make sure that he is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That was what he said initially. That was his initial rhetoric. And then he could see the state of the country and that it was going to go down an ugly road and that it was going to be dangerous for politics in general. And he backed off of that and he ended up giving Nixon a pardon. So it is very interesting that, and you can see that here. What is going to happen to our country if we push this too far? If we, it's scary times we live in, and every single move feels like the counter moves are so much worse and
Yep.
scarier. So it's hard, especially when you're already hearing the rhetoric. You're hearing them make the Justice Department sound like it's what's the word? Phony, like it's, it's being, controlled by the deep state, however you want to word it. And when you do that, it does undermine the Justice Department. It does sort of delegitimize them in the minds of some people. And that's always a problem. All that does is make the idea of federal and state power, right? We have this big movement right now to give the power back to the states. It just
Yep.
strengthens that notion. Oh, look, Bonnie said exactly, Maria. I'm just gonna just blow smoke up my own butt right now. Oh boy, January 6th seems like it was a practice run on what's to come.
Dude. It
Oh.
does. And not only was it a practice run, but it was kind of like, it's like dipping your toe. It's like when a kid just barely breaks a rule to determine how you're going to react to it as a parent. And then you have to determine, am I going to have this nuclear reaction that is, for just barely breaking the rule, but it's very clear that that rule is hard and fast? Or am I going to give them leeway so that they know, oh, maybe I can break that rule a little bit more in the future? And that's what it really feels like, was like, oopsies, I attempted a little bit of a coup. Sorry about that. It actually wasn't a coup because it didn't work. And so now we're a little bit in that, We're like,
Yeah. He tried real hard to make it a coup. He tried to march with everybody. He tried to
grab the
put
fucking
off.
steering wheel.
Yep, grab the steering wheel. He tried so hard to, put off the National Guard or any help coming for as long as he could. He sat there eating his bowl of SpaghettiOs. I don't know what he was eating. SpaghettiOs in my mind, quietly in the dining room. He could
I
he could
mean,
know pretending he doesn't know what's happening. Terrible.
yeah.
He tried
Well,
so hard until his hand was forced.
and you do see the Democrats having exactly the reaction that's created. Is, in this case, Democrats are treating it like a mistake to raid someone whose house that's committed a crime and has classified documents.
You
And
think Democrats are doing that?
I think a ton of Democrats are saying that this was a mistake. Andrew Yang, for all of me loving Andrew Yang, said that this is going to be a huge help to the Republican Party, and that it was potentially a cataclysmic mistake by the Justice Department. Like the Justice Department should be making decisions based upon what is or is not likely to get a president reelected. That's not what that department is for. And
Exactly.
if that's what the department is for, what you're implying, then you're implying that they're right? That it's a fucking phony organization that's about making sure things stay status quo and that the people in power stay in power. And that's the implication of the whole thing you're saying, is that any decision that we make criminally should only be seen through the lens of how it impacts election chances. That isn't that the very essence of a corrupt system, especially one that's named justice? And we have all these Democrats fucking saying this, and I'm like, oh God.
Right, because they're playing the game, right? They're looking at the chessboard and they're saying, this is what's going to happen. This is the next move after something like this. That's
Yep.
how they're playing it. Where the Justice Department is just literally following the rules that are handed to them. And it is that he cannot have those documents. He can't. They're not his. And so they tried to do it quietly. It didn't work. You know,
Yep.
they tried to do it outside of the 90-day election cycle. Is it going to matter? Is it going to help the other side? Who knows? Because they don't work for a side as much as we like to pretend they do, as much as it feels like they do, because they're going after a former president who is a Republican who wants to run again in 2024. It feels like they're choosing a side. I think they tried really hard not to, but he literally walked out with boxes and boxes and boxes of documents. If I read this correctly, because I will say, reading different articles that came out at different time periods, it got confusing. There was an initial 15 boxes. It sounds like when they went in the other day, they took another 10 to 15 boxes.
Yep.
So that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you just turn that all over the first time? Then maybe you could say, okay, we're going to pretend, yes, you did the wrong thing, but I feel like prosecuting you for it when we believe we have it all would not be beneficial to our country or whatever. Maybe at that point you could say that. But if he didn't turn everything over after, whoopsie,
Yep.
I don't know how else to look at it.
I don't know how else to look at it either, but it's, I mean, yeah, the incentives of Trump are crazy here. I imagine he must have known that this was a potential thing that happens, right? And so, does he have those in the rooms that he has them in order to entice this sort of a raid? Does that? What I want to hear is, does the National Archivist look at this and go, "This seems like a near complete picture," or does the National Archivist go, "We're about 10% closer to a complete picture. We have another 90% of documents that are missing, and those are probably, buried in the ground or in a storage unit or some bomb shelter or
in the plumbing.
So much property. I mean, it could be fucking anywhere, and there's no way to execute search warrants on every Trump property. That would be incredible and unprecedented. So I don't know, man. It does feel like possibly bait. It does feel like, Donald Trump has just been throwing out bait as many times as many places as possible. And the reality is that what the Justice Department should do is take the bait. And then what it should do is prosecute him to the full extent of the Justice Department, because that's what he's calling chicken on, is that They won't do that for the political moment. So
exactly. No, I think you're correct. I think you're like, oh man, what are the ramifications of throwing the book at him, of throwing 5 years or 3 years, depending on which one of these statutes you go under. What's the ramifications to the country if we do that? Is that a consideration, or do we just look at the crime itself and say, no, man, you did this fully intentionally. It wasn't really a whoopsie, so you're getting the book thrown at you.
Yep.
It's so difficult to separate the two, but I think you have to. But also, ugh.
Let's talk about some other hilarious and hypocritical reactions.
Yes.
And then we can also talk a little bit about other manufactured political moments, because one happened recently in New York that it's at the very beginning. Like, if you're thinking about where the Breonna Taylor case is right now, the controversies that came out the week or 2 weeks after, there were rumblings of the stuff that we know now about Breonna Taylor, but the stuff that came out a week or 2 weeks later, it was so muddy and it was so hard to separate fact from fiction that basically all that you knew was something fucking weird happened in Breonna Taylor. And now we know something weird did happen, and it's a little bit more crystallized. Well, something recently happened in New York where we're in the muddy stage, but something afoot. There were many feet afoot, and I have much to say about it. But
okay, let's hear about these muddy feet.
Oh, we want to do the muddy feet first?
Oh, I thought that's what we were talking about.
Okay, just because I think it's less interesting, the hypocritical talking points. I'm hearing a lot of Democrats say, and not just Democrats, right? Joe Biden Democrats saying this is not hypocritical. It's leftist Democrats of which I count myself as one, saying this, that is hypocritical, which is that any accusation that the Justice Department is not behaving on the up and up is completely crazy, because they had to go through a process to attain a search warrant. And so whatever they did must be justified because they obtained a search warrant. Is so fucking funny to hear leftists say, who are 100% on law enforcement needs to be under a microscope at all times. There's corruption at all levels. All they do is protect themselves. They're constantly attempting to commit acts of violence and to plant things on people. And that the Breonna Taylor search warrant was not chill, which, by the way, it was not.
It was
but
not chill.
Do you know who was saying that you shouldn't even be questioning this because they had to attain a search warrant? You know who was saying that? Republicans. And now Republicans are saying like that this needs to be looked into, and that we can't trust the Justice Department. It's just funny how the roles have reversed because of who the subject is. And
I mean, listen,
admittedly, you just know that Trump has committed crimes. So you're a little bit like, okay, makes sense that person gets a search warrant. Whereas when we talk about Breonna Taylor, it does not seem like the same case. But it does look funny to hear leftists go, well, if law enforcement says it's true, then it must be. And then hear Republicans go, you can't trust the words of law enforcement. I think that's fucking awesome that that's happening right now. Trump is the true unifier. It's just that he accidentally over-unified. So whenever you add Trump, Democrats start talking like Republicans, and Republicans start talking about Democrats.
Right, but never at the same time about the same thing.
Never at the same time. No. They're always on opposite sides.
Yeah, they keep passing each other by. Just full speed. I will say, when it came to this particular warrant, they convened a grand jury before they got a warrant. So a grand jury reviewed the evidence, and they said, yeah, there's a lot of documentation here to back this up. And then that is what went to the judge it wasn't just a cop saying, hey, judge, bad guys do bad things. Can you sign this warrant? It was a grand jury before there was even a warrant. So I don't know. That seems weird to me. I didn't know that was the process, but I don't know. Well, does that?
It's definitely case by case on whether or not a grand jury is involved, but it is a step that prosecutors will take in order to avoid the accusation of bias. It's to involve a grand jury. But then, dude, grand juries are fucking nuts. Never, even less so than you can predict the result of an actual trial with a normal jury, can you predict when a grand jury is going to select to prosecute. It makes no sense to me. That the Deshaun Watson shit that's come out, and Texas brought together two separate grand juries, which both declined to prosecute like 18 different identical charges against him for sexual assault of women in private massage practices. And both of them declined to criminally prosecute. And you're like, with this evidence? What? There were women that were willing to testify on the stand. That's usually the problem. Anyway, so grand juries never make any fucking sense, but they are this thing that is there to dispel the accusation of bias. In reality, you still have to select a grand jury, and fucking lawyers, dude, good lawyers, half their job is selecting a jury well, man. God, I fucking hate it.
100%.
I hate the criminal system. Okay, some muddy feet afoot. Okay. Some muddy feet. I think I talked about this a few episodes ago, but there's a narrative that political attacks on potential elected officers. I'm going to turn on your echo cancellation. Potential elected officers are increasing, and but in one case, the Republican candidate for governor in New York was attacked at a rally in front of like 100-ish people in Western New York. And there's a video of it. It's kind of crazy, but he's on stage, he's talking, and a white guy comes up with what looks like maybe an ice pick or a screwdriver or something, and he says, he puts his hand on Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is the candidate. Lee Zeldin's shoulder. And he goes, you're done. But does not make an attempt to stab him, but is like going to, and then gets tackled. If you just watch the video, there's nothing. You're like, it looks like he just tried to kill Lee Zeldin. I'm not. The video is convincing. This guy gets arrested. He gets taken out. Lee Zeldin is unharmed. He ends up giving a speech later, but they arrest this man and they take him to jail in Western New York, which is importantly not a Democratic area.
It's not. I lived in Western New York. They're very conservative.
Right. And Lee Zeldin is a Trump election fraud Republican candidate for governor who is not going to win. But a lot of what he talks about, which is a lot of the talking points in New York and New York City, is how the Democrats have had failed policies in criminal justice and bail reform that are allowing violent people back on the streets. This is something that he says all the time. And so imagine our surprise when somebody who apparently attempted to assassinate the governor of New York was released on bail, or released without bail, that night, because it was an attempted assault and therefore not a violent crime. Imagine the headlines. Imagine how good that is for Lee Zeldin, right?
Yes, it's making his point.
It's making his point. Somebody tried to kill him, dude. Kill him. And he's released without bail the same day. And it's crazy. And so he starts going around, and every one of his campaign rallies, he's hitting this point. And by the way, of course you would. Of course. It's a spectacular argument, right? It's like this isn't, I'm not talking about abstract numbers. A motherfucker tried to kill me, and now he's out on the streets. He's going to try to kill me again. So everyone's reaction was like, what? He got released on bail the next day? And also, how is attempted murder not a violent crime? Because the bail reform is that non-violent offenses are released without bail. And that, you know, there's plenty of argument that that's caused some problems. But how is an attempted assassination of a politician non-violent? And I mean, if you're a Republican, you're like, oh, of course it's fucking Democrat to do that. Then a little piece of information comes out, and you know, I'll be careful about the way that I say this, but it's very interesting, is that the prosecutor who chose the charges to bring against this potential assassin was, as recently as a couple of months before this assassination, on the staff of Lee Zeldin's election committee, the prosecutor who selected the specific charges against this assassin.
Okay, so did he selected something nonviolent, and that's why he was released? He
selected something that falls under nonviolent clauses, yes. So he didn't put attempted murder or, there's any number of them. He chose something very specific. And I do remember when reading it, like I was like, this is a weird charge for this. Because by all accounts,
intimidation or like what is it?
Someone. Here, yeah. What were charges against Lee Zeldin assassin?
So is the implication that because he's no longer on Lee Zeldin's campaign, that he's got some hard feelings? Is that the implication?
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
No, the implication is that there might be a manufactured political moment here where something, okay, here we go. And then released just hours later, free on his own recognizance, because New York law bars judges from setting bail for nonviolent felonies, even when that nonviolent felony can fairly be described as the threatened and attempted assassination of a member of Congress and candidate for governor. Well, what's the fucking charge, you dorks? Who's nearly stabbed. Okay, this is such a Republican leading fucking website.
Yeah, it would have had to have been something nonviolent. So what would be nonviolent?
What is the charge?
Interrupting
was charged with attempted assault in the second degree, according to Monroe County Sheriff's Office, and released on his own.
Monroe County. So this was like Rochester then.
Yeah, Western New York.
Well, Western New York is more than one county. You said Monroe. I know Monroe County. That's Rochester, Brockport, Chili.
Okay, here. This was at a uh, an attempted assault on Representative Lee. Uh, he was uh, he was outside the Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall near Rochester.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, but charged with second-degree attempted assault, which is just a very weird charge, I think. And the insinuation is, because apparently him and this prosecutor are still on good terms, that perhaps a moment was manufactured in order to greater amplify his complaints about bail reform, which is a little bit interesting.
Right. So the guy that made an attempt on his life was paid or was in on the shenanigans, which is why he didn't really do anything, but he just made himself look like he was going to do something.
Yeah, David, what a fucking weird name. David G. Jacobunis. He's now facing, he's now held on a federal assault charge.
Okay.
So I don't know if the accusation is that he was involved, but more that Lee Zeldin may have contacted that prosecutor.
And made it seem, and made a lower charge so that he would get out on bail. I got you. It wasn't that didn't really happen. It was that they manipulated what happened so that he would get out on bail.
Yeah.
I got it.
I mean, you would need a pretty dedicated friend to be willing to deal with whatever charges got brought against him for attempting to assassinate a political candidate. I mean, you need to pay him some pretty good money for that.
Wow.
I mean, I guess there are those people that are like, I want to go back to jail.
There are.
But man, yeah, no, it's an interesting situation. But yes, I mean, the essential pieces of information are that the charge is weird, and it felt almost pre-selected to not be in the realm of what are considered violent offenses. Is it weird to me that attempted assault is nonviolent? Yes, I think that should be a violent offense. It has assault in the name. But then that the person that made the decision to charge that was a friend of the campaign. Sus.
Yeah.
Sus.
Huh. No, it's interesting seeing a manipulation that you can break down like that you can look at it and you can go, ooh, this looks weird. And I think, it's not that hard to see how what's going on here can look weird too. How to some it would look suspect that something that has never been charged before would suddenly be charged when it's Trump. But again, it's Trump, and he
that it would be
shit.
suspect that you would that they would come to Mar-a-Lago, you would give them documents, you would knowingly hold other documents, and then leave them there. When you know that there's already people hot on your tail, and you've admitted to making to this being a problem or a mistake, that you continue to leave documents there. Is that interesting? Is that an interesting choice?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
All of it's interesting. And he, I don't know if it's him, if it's his team, if it's everybody, are so good at flipping the script, at making other people look like the bad guys, and inciting their base that, it all starts to sound real and starts to make sense if you want to believe that, if you want to. But really, I think he's just the kind of person that likes to see how far he can take something. How far can I push this? And then let's push it a little more. Let's push it a little more. I am, in fact, above the law. I'm above all things because I'm the best. I always wondered how people voted for him after watching whatever that stupid show that he was on. What was it called?
The Apprentice.
Yeah, The Apprentice. And I watched every season of The Apprentice. I enjoyed the show greatly. But from the very beginning, from the very first season, you could see his ethics. And his ethics were garbage from the beginning. Because if a leader of a team took responsibility for the failure of their team, they were going to go home. He viewed that as weakness. Never take responsibility for failure. Never find somebody else to pin it on. That is literally his mantra and what he will do forever. So even though, yes, you know, he admits that those documents did end up in Florida, you know, when he exited accidentally, whatever, he's going to make that seem like it's perfectly fine, and that anything that happened after that is somebody else's fault. Somebody
Yep.
else is turning it into something, but he's clean as the driven snow because that's his objective at all times. You know, and I think if you understand his ethics, and that, again, admitting wrongdoing or weakness or failure is like the worst thing you could possibly do, right? That is, you're never going to do that. Once you know that about him, it just changes how you view every single word that comes out of his mouth, right?
Yep.
He will never be accountable because that's weakness. Doing whatever you want, that's strength. That's power. It is power. Being able to do whatever you want and not be held accountable is power.
And people do be enjoying power.
They do.
They do be.
They do. Why else would you be, you know, getting it on with strippers when you have a beautiful wife at home? I don't know. Power. He's gross.
Trump?
Yeah.
No.
Deep breaths.
Why is he so? Why do people like him so much, man?
I have a theory.
He's just a small little man.
Right. But he knows how to speak the language of a small little man while appearing to be a big, powerful man. Right.
Yeah.
And people that feel like they have no power in their lives, you know, because they're poor, they're uneducated, they have struggled for everything, and they have a person who appears to be speaking for them and speaking their language and suddenly giving them power, saying, hey, you guys have the power to do X, Y, or Z. You know, just follow me and I will give you power too that you don't feel like you have. I think he's really good at doing that. And I don't think he's just good at saying he's doing that. I think he has, I don't know if it's on purpose or by accident, but has actually given them a certain amount of power, because we're all walking around scared when we were never scared of them before, right? He's gotten them armed. He's gotten them breaking into the White House when nobody would ever thought of doing that before, right? If it was unpatriotic before to kneel during, you know, the national anthem, what could be more unpatriotic than breaking into the White House?
They didn't bring
He's
it to the
got you,
White House.
huh? I'm sorry, you're right. It was the Capitol.
Yeah.
What could be more, you know, yeah, unpatriotic than that? But we've managed to flip that around and make that feel like patriotism, right? The spirit of rebellion is real patriotism. Righting the wrongs of me not being in power, real patriotism. He's given power to these people that feel powerless because they're dum-dums. Because the world is changing too fast for them. Maybe I should say it that way. They all have traumas. They all live in traumas and in survival mode. And the idea that somebody is going to lift them out of it or give them something, anything, it feels like the world. But that's just the theory.
As you sit in a plaza of Trump voters, almost certainly.
Almost certainly. I'm sure that there are others here, especially in this part of the state, but, you know.
Yeah, Ocean Springs is a little bit more, but
Yeah, but still,
yeah,
I don't feel comfortable putting a big old flag out front saying, you know, whatever. I don't like I can't wear my politics on a flag like they can and feel comfortable doing that. That would be scary to me.
People don't even feel that. The closest that people feel comfortable to that in New York, where it is, I mean, Manhattan is like 94% Democrat, and I mean, there's rich people. The closest that people feel to that is like pride flags, and they're like maybe BLM flags, but
right. I would feel weird having both of those flags out front. You know what I mean? Like that would be scary. Yeah. I would be like, man, what am I inviting by opening myself up to the truth of who I am, because it feels like something other here than what everybody else is.
Yeah. What's going on with your neighbor, the thief?
He's still there, but yeah, like the dude, the contractor, filled out the whatever, so there's a warrant for him, and the warrant has the address here at the park. But I
Yep.
don't think it's one of those warrants where they'll necessarily seek you out. It's probably one of those ones that if you get stopped for something else, they'll then drag you in because they have a warrant on you. But
Yep.
yeah, I don't know anything beyond that. I don't know if a court date or anything like that. Yeah.
Has anything else happened with the video camera?
Yeah, there was another dude that was over there snatching wood, like
Yep.
the scrap wood, that we thought was not scrap. But we've since talked to the contractor. He's like, it is scrap, but if I tell people it's scrap, then they'll go and start looking everywhere on the property for stuff for wood instead of just taking from the scrap pile. So I don't tell people that they can take it. So that's not a big deal. But also, there's a big sign that says no trespassing, bro. What are you doing?
So there's and that's a stand your ground type place, right?
I
Mississippi?
mean,
It must be.
yes.
That's
I don't know
great.
that it's like Florida. I
It's
don't
also
think it's like
nice where this
Florida.
contractor like knows how to deal with this, like has a system, and it's like, well, you can't do this. People stealing shit all the time. I'm a contractor. Oh boy.
I mean, they do, but I think that's why a lot of times he doesn't have the stuff brought in until the last minute because he doesn't want it to get stolen. So
Yep. Depressing.
it's depressing for sure. It literally says no trespassing huge. And then there's another sign that says smile, you're on camera, really huge when you pull into the driveway. And still. Yep.
So you weren't able to find
anything
about the scrap wood person? Or I guess you just did Maddox as scrap wood.
Yeah, it is scrap wood, so it's not that big of a deal. No,
Yeah,
your dad knows right where that person lives. Your dad's really good at waking up because that guy was coming at like 6 a.m.
Wait, he knows where they live?
Yeah, your dad knows where everybody lives because he follows, and then he goes and he looks around the neighborhood because this neighborhood is isolated. So it doesn't seem like people are going to be wandering over into that neighborhood without a reason. Like if you don't live there, you don't have friends there, whatever. So it's literally your neighbors that are doing this stuff.
Here's my question about dad is like, once you know who it is, it's like, well, I want to do something. It's like, how do you stop at the knowing who it is part? I wouldn't.
I think I would have a harder time than your dad seems to. Your dad seems to have like a long game in his mind. So.
Okay.
But there was a point where, like, with the metal, because they found out exactly where that got taken too, and they saw this dude hiding behind trees and just nonsense. And there was a point where like we know where he's at. Why don't we just ask him? Say, bring it back, or give us the money for it, and we won't press charges. But we decided to not do that part. just press the charges.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, your dad, he really molded over, going and knocking on the door, saying, "Hey, I know what you did. Here's a picture of you doing it."
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But.
Oh man, I got a couple of stories. I got a one. I was hanging up one of the posters for my my mural business. If anyone knows anyone in New York who wants a mural, your boy will paint a mural. And when I was putting up one of the posters, this lady who, it's just a shame what social media does to us, but she starts videoing me with her phone, and I'm thinking, oh boy, Karen alert, and I turn around and I'm like, everything okay? And she goes, I am looking for a mural for my business. And I was like, oh great, I'm the one on the poster. That's great. Yeah, take. And I ripped one out for her, gave it to her, and she's like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And she's gonna send it to her group chat of women business owners in Manhattan. And so that was a nice little moment. And then I've been taking the train up with Ellie to work, and on the way back down, I had a full crazy homeless woman get up in my face. She's about 100 pounds, which changed the dynamic. Right? Because I felt 100% confident, not only because of the meth, but also because of the size of her, that I could slump her if I wanted to. And so So then the whole thing changes completely, where she gets in my face and goes, "You a sexy little bitch, and you know it. You a sexy little bitch, and you know it, don't you? Damn, why you so sexy? Why you so sexy, and you know it?" And I'm looking at my phone, playing blackjack on my phone, laughing my ass off with this girl in front of me, and had a good little time. Yeah. So
Wow. I mean, because how do you react to a person who was just berating you, then telling you that you're sexy?
look, man, and this is what I'm saying, Mom. Okay, because I don't get catcalled very often because boy, and boys don't understand why catcalling is fucking creepy because we never get complimented, and also because we feel reasonably confident that we can kick the shit out of the people that we want to catcall us, whereas the people that catcall women are men. So this becomes a problem, which is why we should give women guns. I'm telling you.
Back around.
I'm telling you, give women guns. They will respond to catcalling completely differently. Because if you don't like it, stop saying nice shit, you know?
That's great.
Or say your nice shit a little nicer, you know? Stop being like, you shit with that ass, and start being like, you look very beautiful today, and I won't pull a fucking gun on you, you know?
What if we all just started carrying around like women, like as a style choice, just started carrying around like really long scepters, right? To just increase your like it starts out like it's fashion, right? But it'll electrocute you if you wanted to.
Oh, okay.
Also,
I was thinking more bonk.
oh, but how about a bonk and a zap simultaneously?
Love
Bonk
it.
on this side, zap on that side.
Ooh, bonk zap. I mean, I think that cat collars need a bonk. I think that's a very, it's like a pat on the head. It's very like, oh, little boy, you know. There's a trend in New York of women who, when they get catcalled, I think I already said this. I'm just repeating stories, but
That's okay.
women that get catcalled, instead of like saying fuck you or just ignoring or whatever, they just go, I'm sorry, I don't have any money. And then you keep going because you always get catcalled when it's guys in front of their friends. And it's so fucking embarrassing for you to be trying to hit on someone and them to be like, oh, you poor thing. And so.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, I love it. That's a good move, making them feel like I think you're homeless. And so, yeah.
I'm sorry, don't have any cash. Do you have a Venmo? You know?
Do you have a Venmo?
Yeah. That's not catcalling. They get set. I don't know what this is a response to.
You being catcalled when they said you were sexy. Wait, what did she say to you? You were a
sexy little bitch.
You a sexy little bitch.
And you know it. Why are you so sexy? And you know it. And I was in the most normal outfit, right? I was not up in the sexy for that day. I was in shirt and shorts. I was honestly, it was the morning. I had not showered. I was not feeling great about myself. And then the plane gets on for just one stop and just decides to let me know what she thinks, and then got off in the next stop. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go get Subway, you know?
I guess the universe was giving you a tiny little gift in the weirdest way possible.
It was a tiny little gift. What other news is there? Somebody's having a psychotic breakdown at Columbia. And we were like, Ellie's going, keep it on the DL, like he wasn't posting it on his public Facebook. That somebody was like saying, Columbia, you have my demands. You have 3 days, and then 2 days, and then 1 day, like counting that. So school shootery.
Was it a student?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a student who had been barred from campus, and people started freaking out, obviously, because it was so school shootery. And there were just like, I mean, there were so many red flags, but what eventually came out is that he's had a psychotic episode before, and these manic breakdowns, and he seems to be going manic because he was like making demands of Columbia that they compensate him for his suffering with a penthouse in Greenpoint, New York, and that they
What?
like pay him for his suffering, and it was all very interesting. But yeah, he was making these very kind of freaky posts on Instagram and Facebook, counting down the days until Colombia would have to deal with the consequences, and the consequences are on your head. And so today was the day of the countdown, and he's barred from Columbia or the campus, and he was spotted on campus, and he has been arrested and brought for mental evaluation. So
I mean, he was told not to be on campus and he was on campus. It's cut and dry. Just like, you're not supposed to take these documents and you took the document. Very cut and dry.
yeah,
Very
and I'm
uh
just saying, you're in New York, which has a certain history. He's also Iranian, and he's on a
oh,
visa. I'm
oh,
like, you don't want to fuck with this law enforcement system here, man. You don't. I don't think that you want the game that you're playing here. I mean, 100% he's going to get deported. I like. There's no way this happens and it does not end his visa. He was on visa to study at Columbia. But also, you're Iranian in New York, and you're posting these like he was posting these Instagrams of like his chemistry book and being like, "Oh, I'm reading up on chemistry," and then making threats against Columbia in the next post. And you're like, dude, you are playing with so much fire right now. This is say something state. Okay,
yeah.
I don't know if you've
Yeah.
looked at the skyline, but it looks a little different than it did 25 years ago. So
Yeah, I think if he was having a mental health issue, and he was just on the subway being weird, nobody would think anything of it. But you're threatening a school, you're on a visa, you're Iranian in New York City. It's just a little extra
and you're
layers.
intelligent. You're super intelligent, and you go to like an Ivy school. It's just there's so many bad things that are not not going for him. But people were definitely freaked out. A lot of people stayed home today and yesterday because of this. So you
Yeah.
know,
Ooh,
glad nothing happened. People were definitely on the lookout.
me too. Did you hear about Mayor Giuliani? He's not the mayor, but he's the mayor forever. That Rudy Giuliani, that he said that he can't fly in an airplane for some reason to make it to any depositions. I want to say they are related to January 6th type of depositions. And he's
Ah,
like, yeah, I can't make it because I can't fly in an airplane, and they offered to send him a bus ticket.
that's funny.
That is funny.
I mean, these people think they're above the fucking that. This is how the system works, guys. Okay, you're not above it because you're rich. You're like less above it because you're rich because we know that you can get here, right? When a poor
When it
person's
comes
in
to
another
that,
state and they need to like travel for a subpoena, we show some lenience because you can't afford to travel. But when you're rich, shut the fuck up.
yeah, just get here, figure it out. I don't know why they can't do it over Zoom, but
You
they
know,
want him there.
here's the most damning thing about Giuliani. Okay, look at me. I'm a leftist. I'm a fucking transplant to New York. Okay, I'm not that. I'm not all that. But do you know what I do? When I go to a New York minor league baseball game, I stay for the whole shit and not even to put it on social media. Rudy Giuliani, on the other hand, sits behind me at the game. He's not a real fan. Okay, he stays for 4 innings, and the second that minor league team is down, he books it. Fake fan, okay, fake New Yorker. Okay, we love our baseball, and we stay behind our fucking team. Okay, go
And
Mets.
for the 4 innings he was there, he spent the whole time on Twitter.
Oh yeah, dude, making such a fuss the whole time. Not that, and there's such an etiquette to being at a baseball game in New York. You know who doesn't know it? Rudy Giuliani. Okay. Just chatting it up, talking about Hunter Biden's laptop at a baseball game. How about we talk balls and strikes and we talk shit to their hitter, okay? And we say a bunch of terrible shit and we spit and we go, right? New York
Yep.
baseball.
We sing a song, we have a good time. Drink
Yeah,
some beer.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm betting that his diaper just only lasts so long. It's just got a limited capacity. It's time to go.
I mean, I will say that that the bathroom facilities at that stadium are that they leave something to be desired. Go Rochester Red Wings, by the way, just for your New York background. Red Wings,
Wait, you call them the what Red Wings?
Rochester Red
Oh,
Wings.
yes, the Red Wings. That's hockey, isn't it?
No, it's a baseball team.
Oh, what's the hockey team? The Amerks. The
Rochester.
Amerks. Okay.
The what?
The Amerks. No?
The
The
Americans.
Sabres.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Sabres.
Well, there's also
That's
the Buffalo
Buffalo.
Sabres, but
And the
yeah,
Amerks.
the Rochester Americans. But it is Amerks.com. That's very funny. That's a terrible name. You know who's
I didn't know it meant Americans. It was just I don't know what Amerks meant.
you know who's got a really good baseball minor league baseball team name is Binghamton, New York. The Binghamton Rumble Ponies.
That is a good name.
So good.
I don't is a rumble pony a specific type of pony?
I don't know.
Rumble pony. They sound like they're having fun though.
They do. They sound like, Brooklyn has the Cyclones, which is lame. Just named after the Coney Island roller coaster.
Oh.
But you know, the buy-in for minor league baseball in New York is limited because we have two major league teams. And people don't understand the joy of it, man. People don't understand the joy of minor league baseball.
Yep. You love minor league. You love minor league.
I love minor league and I love Mets games, dude. Because those Mets fans are just fucking salt of the earth, like old cigarette breath Italians and Jews. Just like, oh, geez. You remember in 1980 when that guy, he just pitched the fucking, and they, you know, and just like, and then they see a young guy and they're like, come over here. And you're like, okay, you know, look at what's happening on the plate down there. Do you respect? I don't respect a guy that does something like that. And I go, I don't respect it. I don't know what you're talking about, but yes, I'll agree with anything you say to me. And then by the end of the game, you're all a community. Ugh, go Mets.
All right.
I've gone on a tangent, I realize.
It was fun.
Any
it was
tangents
nice.
you want to go on, Mom? Any big stories?
I have nothing. Nope, nothing today.
All right.
But I'm glad we did a show. I guess I'm back on with John Yates. He's back to making content. I was on with him on Monday.
Nice.
We have a new panel, which I am excited about. I'm hoping it's going to be positive because that's what I need in my life. Let's all be positive. But I just love what we do here. I like having the chance to talk about stupid stuff with John and, escapism stuff with John. And then I like getting the chance to talk about real stuff with you. And then eventually, we get sidetracked and start talking about, baseball games.
But it's fun. It is
fun. No, I like it. I'm just saying I like it. It makes me feel good. And
sorry, go on.
And I appreciate it.
I
Ashley was late.
Oh my gosh, Ashley. You're not fulfilling your duties as our number one fan and my number one critic. So just kidding. There are more critics of me than you. We had a very good time. We love all of our fans. I think that we want to do a Breonna Taylor episode because everything about that is crazy. What's going on with that? I am going to be flying to the Midwest's most beautiful city on Friday. Say it with me, Mom. Des Moines, Iowa. So I'm going to be in Des Moines from Friday to Thursday. That doesn't mean I can't do a show. It just means I'll be doing it in a different abode. So
okay. Yeah, so, let me know. Let me know the times that work for you for that. And yeah, we can do Breonna Taylor. I have done most of my research. I've done my screen art already. So I just got a little bit more to do. And then yeah, we can do that whenever it feels good. It's kind of the antithesis of what we covered here. It's pretty much the opposite situation. So
all right.
But you know what? The Justice Department is involved in both. So that is interesting and unexpected to me.
There you go. And you asked why I'm going to Des Moines. It is because of my deep and abiding love of state fairs.
Oh.
And also because all of our friends are going to be there. So Michael and Will and both of their wives / fiancés are coming, and we're
That's
gonna
pretty cool.
go see the Iowa State Fair and hang out. Michael lives in Des Moines, so we're staying in his apartment, and we're gonna have a nice little weekend together.
Yeah, eat something that's weird and fried.
Of course,
If there's a chance to do your own butter sculpture, do a butter sculpture. If
that
not,
would be so awesome.
take a picture of somebody else's butter sculpture.
I'm excited to see butter sculptures. Do you know what I'm crazy excited for? Giant pumpkins, dude. There's something about giant pumpkins that I just love so much.
You mean like huge mammoth?
Yeah, like competition pumpkins. There's a pumpkin competition at the Iowa State Fair, and so these like 1-ton pumpkins show up, and it's just you just look at them and you're like, how did that come from the ground? What does the root system look like for this thing? Okay, I mean, to make a pumpkin, you need that amount of matter. How did these roots extract that much matter from the ground?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I do think it's just same size. It's the same size plant as always. It's just somehow,
got a giant fucking pumpkin on it. And dude, it's 1 ton, right? And this is being grown. I mean, the actual fruit of it is being grown over the course of a month, 2 months. And so 60 days, 2,000 pounds. That thing is growing like 20 pounds a day. Those
crazy.
roots are working overtime, dude.
Wow.
I freaking love giant pumpkins.
Yeah. Take some pictures. Pictures.
Pictures will be taken. You have my promise.
Thank you.
Awesome. We love all you guys. Love you, Diamond Girl. Love you, Ashley. Love you, Suzanne. There's been some new people this time too. Suzanne. Love you, Barbie. Love you, Sarah Z. Love you, Bonnie Patterson. Love you, Patricia. Love you, Sophie.
Oh, Peter Edwards was here as well.
Peter Edwards. I don't know who that is, but shout out. I love you. And that's the list of people that commented. We love all of you. And I love you, Ellie, who I know is listening but has not commented.
Okay, so thank you for keeping us company. Should we sing it out?
Let's sing it out. I'm going to be doing, apparently my metal voice scares the dog, so I'm going to be doing that again.
Oh, okay.
This was nobody asked when no one nests. Everyone nests and then no one does. And that's the thing. I hate to be a bearer of bad news, but our institutions fail sometimes. And that is never good. This was nobody asked, and it will soon be over. If Garland can time the end broadcast.